because you're on both.
Okay, I'm going to leave.
Come back soon.
Hello, Rabbi. Welcome back. Hello, Rabbi. Welcome back.
Getting feedback.
Can you hear me, Rabbi?
Hello, Kent.
Not sure where the feedback is coming from. Trying to get the screen share to go. Give me a moment.
Rabbi, can you hear us?
I do.
Okay, good. Well, welcome back.
Hello, Kent. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Rabbi. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hello, Diane and Dave.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hello, Rabbi.
So what have you been doing in my absence, tell me?
Today.
You find another teacher.
No.
Nope.
We
I was hoping the organizers would find the replacement.
They didn't.
So I hope you followed online.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we went to the text.
My dear lamented cousin, Rabbi Gordon. Okay. So finally, I went away long enough that you got out of Tumah, finally. We have some more interesting content over here.
What?
So, without further ado, do you all see the text on the screen?
Yep.
Great. All right. So this is chapter 13. So you've already learned quite a bit, hopefully, about finders keepers. So you know that finders keepers is not a Jewish concept, and we believe that there's something called a mitzvah of Hashovas Aveda, of returning lost objects to its rightful owner. And we have to make some quite significant efforts at finding the rightful owner. Let me just close my curtain so you can see me a bit better, maybe. Oh,
Much better, thanks.
now I can see myself. Right. So today we're going to see to what extent one has to actually go when doing this mitzvah of Hashovas Aved, of returning lost articles. It's actually quite extensive, but we will learn, the Rambam tells us that we would have probably gone even further, but the rabbis put limits curtailing the extent to which one has to work to find the rightful owner, because if it became so onerous, nobody would actually pick up any lost objects. It would defeat the whole purpose. So if we made it too difficult, people would just say, I'm not getting involved. This is too complicated. Leave me out of it, turn a blind eye. I didn't see a thing. So therefore, we'll see that there are limits. As we go a little bit later in the chapter. So, halacha number 1, Aleph, Hamoitze Aveda, one who finds a lost object that he's obligated to return. You already learned, I presume, that certain objects you may keep. Finders keepers does apply if, for example, you find loose cash lying around in a public place with no way of identifying it as belonging to somebody. It's not in a wallet, it's not in an envelope, it's not with an elastic band around it or anything. It's just loose cash lying around, then you may keep it. But if there is a way of identifying the owner, then you have an obligation to find that owner. So how did we find the owner? So there was no Facebook in those days. There was no social media announcements. So you had to do it in person. So when a person would find a lost object that is obligated to return, he would announce, chayav lahachriz. He would have to make an announcement in a public place that he found this, and saying whoever lost this type of article should come and identify it with a siman. A siman is the Hebrew word for marks, for identifying marks that would prove that this person is the rightful owner, and then he can take it. So we're not worried that he will say, whoever lost money, he mustn't give it away. Like if he finds a watch, he mustn't say, who lost a Rolex? He'll have a lot of takers. He must say, who lost a watch? And the person will come by and they'll say, oh, what kind of watch is it? If he says a Rolex, okay, we know that he's a candidate. If he says it's a Timex or a Citizen, then also. So he mustn't give away what kind of thing it is, but just saying it's a watch is not a giveaway because there's so many different kinds of watches, and the person would not be able to take a flyer and give an identifying mark if it was not really his. So he can say, whoever lost a watch, come and talk to me. Whoever lost money, come and talk to me. Whoever lost a jacket, come and talk to me. Because you still have to identify how the money was or the jacket, etc. Even if it's a small value, it was only worth a pruta, a coin, a rand at the time of its discovery, but then it depreciated in value. Now, if it's less than a pruta, you don't even have to bother with it. That's not money. You could argue that a rand is also not money, but there's a basic. So even if when he found it, it was worth a minimum coin, he still has to announce it. And there was a large stone outside of Jerusalem where these announcements would traditionally be made. So the finders and losers would go to the stone. We'll learn later that it was on the 3 pilgrim festivals, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, that at the temple, in the temple precinct, there was a special stone where people would gather to announce found articles and to find their lost articles. So how would he make the announcement? So if he discovered money, whoever lost coin should come and identify. Whoever lost a garment, an animal, promissory notes, come and identify him with a siman, with marks, with identifying marks, prove that it's yours, and you can collect it. And as I said before, you needn't worry that he mentioned what it is, a watch or a garment or an ox, because you have to describe it, and you have to describe it in a pretty accurate way that inspires confidence that you are in fact the owner, and that you haven't just taken a flyer at making a win over here. Now, there are different kinds of simanim, of marks, of identifying marks. Some are reliable, some are not reliable. And he gives us some examples. 3. If the owner of the lost object came and identified with marks that are not distinctive, you must not give it to him until he comes back with distinctive marks that will prove that he is the genuine owner. When a person is known as a liar, as a deceiver, a lost article should not be returned to him, even if he gives out distinctive marks, because we don't trust him. He may have found out something about this in his own devious ways, and we cannot trust him. He has to bring witnesses. If he has 2 witnesses who testify that it's his, then we will give it to him. And he quotes the verse in Deuteronomy, shall remain in your possession until your brother asks, which can be interpreted to mean must examine the person to see whether or not he is deceiver. You have to, droi shachicha means to examine the brother, your brother. You have to check him out if he is a reliable person that you can believe him. If not, he has to bring witnesses. 4. Originally, when a person lost an article and came and identified it, we returned to him, unless he was known as a deceiver, as a liar. So, unless a person had a bad reputation as being dishonest, you would give it to him, no questions asked. But then there came a time that deceivers proliferated. More and more people were dishonest, sadly. So then the court ordained that instead of people being innocent until proven guilty, it'll be more the reverse, that they're guilty till proven innocent. They have to prove with good proof that it in fact is theirs. And the court ordained that he would be told, bring witnesses that you are an honest person, and then we'll believe you. 5. Distinctive marks are relied upon and used as the basis of court in all matters according to scriptural law. What are some of the distinctive features, identifying marks that would prove that this person knows this object well, and therefore he most likely is the owner? Some of them are an object's measure, how long it is, weight, its number, it's a bunch of things, how many, or the place where it was lost. If you can give an exact spot, you can't just say Times Square, you got to say exactly where. These will be considered distinctive simanim, marks that are reliable. What happens if 2 people come and they both identify the article by the very same marks? And what do? The article should not be given to either of them. Rather, it remains in the finder's possession until we can get some clarity here. Either one of them will acknowledge that it's the other guy's, or they'll come to a compromise. If one of them identifies the articles by marks, so he brings simanim, identifying marks. The other one, however, brings 2 witnesses. So what's more credible? Who do we believe? Obviously, the one who brought witnesses is stronger than someone just giving identifying marks, because it could be he was the guy's friend and he knows what kind of watch he wore and he knows what it looked like. So how do we know it's his? By 2 witnesses, the Torah says, Al pi shnayim edim yokum dover. By 2 witnesses shall the law be established. So there's nothing better than 2 witnesses in Jewish law. If both claimants identify the article with marks, and one brings along 1 witness to support his claim, so they both have the exact identifying simanim, they both give the same ID, but one has a witness as well, but only 1 witness. What's the halacha? The 1 witness is not considered significant, and it's as if there were no witnesses. 2 or nothing, double or nothing. 7, if a person finds a dress or an article of that nature and there are 2 claimants, one brings witnesses who testify that it was woven for him. He's the weaver, he made it for him. The other brings witnesses who testify that they saw it fell from his possession. Again, it will be given to the one who has witnesses who testify that they saw him lose it. If one identifies it by stating its length, and the other by stating the width, what's more reliable? He says the length. Because if you're a dishonest person, let's say it's a jacket or a dress, a jersey, a blanket, you could work out the width. You could take an educated guess and say, well, a person of this and this size, it probably has to be this and this width. But the length, You don't know so easily. So therefore, between length and width, we would go by the one who says the length. If one says length and width, and the other says the weight, it should be given to the one who stated its weight. That's probably harder to know. If one identifies it by stating length and width, and the other identifies it by stating the measure of its fringes, it had fringes around the hem, it should be given to the one who states its length and width. Excuse me. Originally, whoever would find a lost object would announce its discovery at 3 successive pilgrimage festivals. So you'd have to go to Yerushalayim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, or Shavuos, Sukkot, and Pesach, or Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuos. On the first festival, he'll announce, "This is my first announcement." On the second festival, he said, "This is the second announcement." On the third festival, he would announce the discovery of the article without mentioning the number of times, lest a listener hear incorrectly and confuse the second with the third. Don't think he still has time. And really, this is the final announcement. After the third festival, excuse me, he waits 7 days. Why do we need 7 days? Because let's say the guy the guy who lost it, the rightful owner, hears that he found this. He say, "Hey, I have something like that. Did I lose it? Let me go home and see if it's still in my cupboard. Maybe I lost it. Maybe it was stolen." So we have to wait 7 days to give the person 3 days to travel home, check his articles at home, return in 3 days, and then when he announces again on the 7th day, he can meet the person who lost it. When the temple was destroyed, this is very interesting, has relevance to us today. So I told you there was a special place with a big rock on the Temple Mount where they would announce it. Once the temple was destroyed, where did we go? No, what replaced the temple? The shul. The shul is called the mini temple. So when the temple was destroyed, the sages ordained announcements should be made in the synagogues and houses of study. However, there came a time when there was an increase in the number of men of violence, people who were powerful, physically powerful, and they would coerce people. They would twist people's arms to get their way. And they would say, any lost object belongs to the king. And you couldn't really fight them. They were too strong. So our sages ordained that announcements should be made discreetly to one's neighbors and associates. And that's the best we can do, so that's sufficient. Because if you make public announcements, these guys will come and chop it. Today, I would say that the shul is actually a very good place to make such announcements because it's a pretty good public place. If you have Facebook and social media, by all means. 10. If an announcement or notification was made and the owner did not come to claim the discovered object, okay, so now he's made his announcements 3 times, 4 times, no claimers. So can he keep it? Not so fast. It should remain in the possession of the finder until when? Ad sheyovo Eliyahu. Until Elijah the prophet comes, which means Eliyahu comes shortly before Mashiach. So Mashiach is coming this afternoon. So any minute now, Eliyahu Hanavi is going to arrive. And in the Gemara, in Baba Metzia in particular, we have a number of halachas where people are jostling over a found article on the street and they can't come to terms, and the Beth Din cannot corroborate or decide who it belongs to. So there are times when the halacha is it should remain in the Beth Din vault until Eliyahu comes. Hopefully, when the disputants hear that it's going to sit there until Eliyahu comes, they will come to their senses, and hopefully the dishonest one will admit that it's not actually his, and hopefully the rightful owner can get it. If it is lost or stolen while it's in the finder's possession, guess what? He's responsible. If it's destroyed by forces beyond his control, then he's not liable. Why is this? Because he's like a shomer, like a guardian, a custodian. Now, if you've learned the halachas of the four guardians, the four custodians, the shomer chinam, the shomer socha, the shoyel, and the soicher, an unpaid custodian, a paid custodian, a borrower, or a renter, those are the four custodian types. An unpaid custodian is exempt from responsibility, from liability, if it's lost or stolen. He's not being paid, so he has limited liability. A paid custodian is responsible if it's lost or stolen. He's only exempt from liability if it's beyond his control. If 16 guys with AK-47s arrive, then we will not hold him responsible. So if I go on holiday and I ask you, please, can you look after my Maltese poodle here, my little poodle? His name is Hund, and please look after him while I go to Mshlanga for a week. And then that week it gets lost or stolen. If the guy was not being paid, he's doing you a favor, he's not liable. But if I go to the lords and ladies poodle parlor and I pay them a couple of $100 to watch my poodle, and then I come back and they say, oh, sorry, we had a robbery, it was stolen, then they're responsible because they were being paid, so they're more liable. So here, a person who's guarding, who's the custodian of a found object that was lost, and he found it, he is considered a paid watchman, a paid custodian. Why? How's he getting paid? You know why? Getting paid for doing a mitzvah. God is paying him for doing a mitzvah. He will be rewarded, for he is involved in the performance of a mitzvah, and as such is freed from the obligation to perform several positive commandments as long as he's occupied with guarding it. So some things that you find, you just put in a drawer and there's nothing to do. What if you find an animal? You got to feed the animal, you got to look after the animal. It's a whole business. So you're actually doing a mitzvah, and while you're doing this mitzvah, you're exempt from certain other mitzvahs. So you're like a paid custodian, and if it gets lost through negligence or something, or you just, it wasn't 16 guys with AK-47s, it just got lost or stolen, you will be liable. 11, the finder. Now here are some of the obligations of the finder. The finder must pay attention to the article and inspect it so that it will not become spoiled and ruined over the course of time. Now, depending on what the article is, there will be different laws. Let's say it's food, and food is going to become fraught in a day or two, so we'll soon learn. If it's something that you can just put in the drawer and it remains fine, then there's nothing to do. But some things need to be looked after. So he'll give some examples. So it says, and you shall return it to him. So we have to see that he should be returned it intact and in good condition. So what is implied? So if you find a woolen garment, can you just hang it up? He says, no, you could hang it up, but you should not just leave it, because the moths can eat it up. It could become moldy. So a woolen garment should be shaken out. Give it a shokel every 30 days. Not with a staff, not with two people, gently. You can spread it out on a couch for its benefit. not because you need to cover a loch in your couch and you have visitors coming. Then you're benefiting from it. And if you're having guests, you should not spread it out in their presence, lest it be stolen. I don't know who you're inviting. Maybe you don't even know who you're inviting. Maybe you're having a function. You don't even know who's going to pitch. Maybe you'll have some dishonest gate crashers. If it's wooden utensils, you should use them so they don't rot. Then you're allowed to use them because you're helping the object retain its condition. Copper utensils should be used for hot, but not exposed to fire. They may become warm. Silver utensils only for cold, not for hot, because hot may discolor them. Rakes or hatchets, don't go start chopping trees down. Use them with soft things, not with hard ones, lest they deteriorate. Golden utensils, glass utensils, or linen garments, things that are more delicate, don't touch them until Elijah arrives. Put them in the cupboard and let them remain until such time as we find the owner, or Eliyahu tells us who the owner is. One of the things Eliyahu Hanavi will do when he comes is sorting out all these halachic dilemmas for us. The same principles that apply to a lost object which one discovered apply to an entrusted object whose owner undertook a long journey. If you're looking after something for a long time, you have to do the same thing. 13, if you find scrolls, in those days there were no books, there were scrolls, you should actually read them once every 30 days. Keeps it in better condition. You don't know how to read? Roll them every 30 days. One should never study a subject for the first time from the scrolls that you found, because then you're going to be looking into it very deeply, and you might get distracted, and you might not look after it, you might tear it. Nor should one read a passage and repeat it or translate it. So even when you're reading it, you have to do it very carefully. Similarly, one should not open the scroll more than 3 columns wide. We had a guy did Hagbe in our shul this past Shabbos. Wow. He opened it so wide, must have been 20 columns. I don't know how, probably took 2 people to do Glila. It was so wide. So you shouldn't open it more than 3 columns wide. 2 people should not read 2 different subjects from the same scroll. Why? This guy's going to pull it to him. He wants to read his column. The other guy pulled to him. He wants to read his column because they're reading different columns. Meanwhile, it'll get torn. 2 people may read if they're the same subject, the same column. 3 people should never read because they're for sure going to pull it in different directions. What if you find a pair of tefillin? He may have their value appraised and he may wear them. That's the general halacha you should know about. Let's say you come into shul and you want to daven and you don't have tefillin. It's after hours, there's nobody there to help you. You see a pair of tefillin. Are you allowed to use them? Doesn't belong to you. You're not sure if it's a public pair of tefillin that belongs to the shul, which is available for the public. Maybe it belongs to somebody private. The halacha is you're allowed to use it even without permission, because we have a established principle. We presume that the owner of the tefillin would be happy for another mitzvah to be performed with his tefillin. He'll be very happy and gracious to allow someone else to wear his tefillin. So even if we can't find the owner, we're allowed to wear them. So here too, similarly, we found tefillin. We don't know who the owner is. You're allowed to wear them. 15. The person finds a living being, an animal, that must be fed. Now we're getting complicated. I'm going to have to feed this animal. I'm going to have this animal for 6 months. Then the guy's going to come and claim it. Meanwhile, it cost me a fortune. I'm showing a loss over here. Who's going to do this? So we have certain principles to prevent this from happening. If you find an animal that has to be fed, if the found object may be used to earn money, it can work for you. Even though it eats, for example, a cow or a donkey, they could schlep a plow or give you a ride or do some work for you in the field. So the finder should care for them for 12 months from the day of discovery. He may hire them out and he has to feed them. If the rental he receives for their hire exceeds the cost of their food, so now he's made a profit. Who gets the profit? The owner, not the finder. Similarly, if you find chickens, one should sell their eggs and feed them for 12 months. From this time onward, one should have their value assessed, and they are considered as belonging in partnership to the finder and the owner, and the arrangement is governed by the laws applying to one who raises livestock for a colleague. It's a whole different section. So there's a story in the Gemara, I don't know if you ever came across it, I forget which sage it was, who found some chickens. And he took care of them, trying to find the owner of the lost chickens. It's a business. And then they started laying eggs. Then the eggs hatched, you got more chickens. Soon he has dozens of chickens. It's a busy, big business to look after all these chickens and feed them and all that. So he sold the chickens and he bought some calves. And he was looking after the calves and feeding them. And eventually, they found the rightful owner who lost the original chickens. This guy came after weeks or months. And did you find my chickens? Maybe I lost a couple of chickens over here. And what does he give him? Gives him a bunch of calves. So the guy made a nice profit. Really big mitzvah. The Gemara speaks in praise of this sage, of the great mitzvah that he performed. What if you find calves, not chickens, or ponies that pasture? You should care for them for 3 months. Other animals that have to be fed, 30 days. Because the calves and ponies, they can just put them out on the grass in the field and they can eat themselves. Other animals have to be fed. It's a big, it's a lot of work. So that's only 30 days. Geese or roosters, 30 days. Younger fowl or other live being whose care is more costly than the wage that may be earned with it, 3 days. Yeah, you're going to spend more money feeding these things than they can do for you. So it's not a proposition. Who's going to do this? So if you don't find the owner in 3 days, you take it to the Bezdin, and the Bezdin supervises the sale of these chickens or whatever it is, and then you have the money, and if you find the owner, you give him the money, which prevents the person from having to do all this work, which no one's going to be interested in doing. Similarly, if produce has begun to rot, or other similar things occur to a lost object is going down in value, it should be sold in the presence of a court, so we know for sure what they were sold for and the amount that he has to return to the rightful owner when he arrives. What should be done with the money? It should be given to the finder, and until such time as the rightful owner is found, the finder has permission to use this money on loan. So if the money is lost by forces beyond his control, an attacking force, or it sank at sea, he's liable for its repayment, even if he never made use of it because he had permission to use it. It was as if he borrowed the money, so he has to pay it back. We'll soon learn that it's not always the case. Which funds may a finder make use of? The money received for the sale of a lost object, since he cared for the object, he's given this privilege. What if he finds actual money? Not he sells chickens and gets money. He found money. He should not make use of it. Therefore, if it's lost to forces beyond his control, he is not liable for it because he's considered as a paid custodian, and if it's beyond his control, he's not liable. During the entire time in which the finder cares for the lost animal before selling it in court, if he feeds it from his own resources, he should be reimbursed by the owner. So he doesn't have to show a loss on doing this mitzvah. He's entitled to be reimbursed by the owner for his costs in feeding this. It appears to me, says the Rambam, that he is entitled to collect this sum without supporting his claim with an oath. And this is a decree ordained for the benefit of society. Mipnei tikkun ha'olam. What does it mean for the benefit of society? As I said in my introduction, if we make the laws of returning lost objects so onerous, nobody will perform the mitzvah. They'll turn a blind eye. They won't want to get involved with lost objects. I'm going to lose money on this deal. If I have to go take an oath of how much I have to spend to feed it, I don't like to take oaths in court. It's a whole business. So we believe the finder who did the mitzvah to keep it, and when the owner eventually comes, he's entitled to be reimbursed for the amount that he states he paid to feed these animals, and he does not have to take an oath. Otherwise, the whole mitzvah will be disregarded by people. And on the same note, finally, number 20, when a person finds a lost object, he's not required to take an oath, again, for the benefit of society, because people won't want to get involved. Nobody likes to take an oath. It's a very grave, solemn situation. Or if a finder of a lost article is required to take an oath, he would ignore the lost article. He would turn a blind eye and keep walking so that he would not be required to take an oath. Even if a person found a wallet and the owner of the wallet claimed, hey, where's the other wallet? There were two wallets tied together. You're only giving me back one. You stole my other wallet. And he says it's impossible to find one without finding the other because they were secured together. The finder is still not required to take an oath. Normally, there's a halacha of moide b'mikzas. The person says, where's the $1,000 you owe me? He says, $1,000? It was only 500. So we say he can pay 500, but he has to take an oath that he only borrowed 500 from him because he confessed to part of the claim. Here, we might think it would be the same. The guy's claiming he lost two wallets. He says he found one wallet. Maybe he should have to take an oath that it was only one, not two. That's the normal case. But in the case of finding lost objects of Hashavas Aveda, we say no. Because if we're going to be so strict and make the finder take an oath, nobody's going to pick up a lost object. They will just turn a blind eye, and this whole mitzvah will become disregarded. A quick squiz at the quiz. If one person has a lost article by its marks, and the other brings witnesses, who do we give it to?
Witnesses.
Thank you.
Witnesses.
If two claimants provide identifying a lost item, one provide a single witness in addition, do we give it to him?
No.
No.
You. One person identifies a lost item by stating its length, and the other states its width. Who do we believe?
One with the
Length.
length.
Thank you. And finally, if an animal made a lost item, no one came forward to claim it, may the finder keep it for himself.
Number three.
Number 2.
2 or 3?
3, I think 3.
3 is correct. Thank you,
3.
guys. Well done.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed
Thank you,
that.
Rabbi.
Thank
Yeah,
you, everyone.
Rabbi.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Good to be back.
Rabbi, Rabbi,
Uh,
it reminds
Good to
me
have
the
you
Thank
earlier,
you.
Yes.
we'll be together.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
it reminds, the earlier part reminds me of the story of somebody found, let's say, a watch, and he announces, will all those who lost a watch queue up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I missing? Is that a joke or what?
It's a fable. All those who lost this watch queue up.
There's so many that there'll be a queue.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's why we took precautions to avoid dishonest people. Okay, guys, have a great week.
Sorry, quickly,
Thank
Rabbi.
you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Sorry, Rabbi.
Rabbi,
quickly.
Yeah,
Rabbi, in the event of the money loss, the loser must be able to identify how much he lost, right?
if it's loose cash, he has to give some way that proves that it's his. And I'm not sure if
I might not know how much I had in my wallet, but I know that my wallet is lost.
if it's a wallet, then you can identify the wallet.
Yeah.
You don't have to identify how much cash. If it's loose cash, if it was in a pile, coins in a certain pile, I had 3 piles there, 10, half,
Yeah.
whatever each, that's an identifying mark. If it was an envelope with an elastic in this way or that way, that might be considered, I'm not sure, because, lots of people do that.
Yeah.
So generally, loose cash can actually be found, can actually be kept by the finder.
Yeah, because
Unless
the loser might not be able to know if it fell out of his wallet how much he had there, so he wouldn't be able to.
if it just fell out of his wallet and there's no way of him identifying it as his, the person who finds it may actually keep it.
Right.
Because we presume that the loser has given up hope of finding it, and therefore it becomes hefker, becomes public and ownerless, and first come, first served.
So taking an oath wouldn't be appropriate.
No.
Wouldn't be.
No.
Yeah. Okay.